The shuttle touched down on Terra 7 with a soft hiss of hydraulics. Commander Hana stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, her dark purple uniform sharp against the golden wheat fields that stretched endlessly before her. Behind her, 4 armed guards followed, their weapons held ready but not raised. This was supposed to be a simple collection run. The humans on this world were farmers, nothing more. Hana had done this hundreds of times before. Small colonies always paid their tribute without fuss. It was easier than fighting, and the Vrixtal Empire had a reputation for being thorough with those who refused. But there was something about this place that felt different. The air was too calm, the fields too peaceful. It made her uneasy in a way she couldn't explain. A dirt path led from the landing site to a small farmhouse about 200 meters away. Next to it stood a red barn that had seen better days. Agricultural equipment sat parked in neat rows, machines that looked ancient compared to the technology Hana's people used. Everything here screamed primitive, backward, harmless. She started walking down the path, her boots crunching on the gravel. Her guards spread out behind her in standard formation. As they approached the farmhouse, a man emerged from the fields. He was human, maybe 40 years old, with dark hair and sun-weathered skin. He wore simple clothes covered in dirt and carried a wide-brimmed hat in one hand. When he saw them, he stopped and smiled. "Good afternoon," the man said in perfect Vrixtal. His accent was flawless, which surprised Hana. Most humans struggled with the guttural consonants. "You must be here for the tribute collection. I'm Taiyang. Welcome to my farm." Hana studied him carefully. He showed no fear, no nervousness. His body language was relaxed, open, friendly even. This was unusual. Most colonists tensed up when the Empire came calling. They stammered and avoided eye contact. But this man looked at her directly, his dark eyes calm and measuring. "Commander Hana of the 7th Talon Fleet," she said formally. "I'm here to collect this quarter's tribute as mandated by Imperial decree. I trust you have it prepared?" "Of course," Taeyang said easily. "But it's hot out here and you've traveled far. Would you like some tea first?" "I just made a fresh pot," Hana blinked. Was he inviting Imperial soldiers into his home for tea? She looked at her guards, who seemed equally confused. One of them, a young officer named Kryn, shook his head slightly, silently advising against it. But Hana found herself curious. There was something about this human that didn't fit. "Tea would be acceptable," she said. Taeyang's smile widened. "Excellent. Please come in. Your guards are welcome too, though they'll have to leave the heavy weapons by the door. House rule." Kryn moved forward. "Commander, we should maintain proper security protocol." "It's fine," Hana said. She wasn't sure why she said it. Maybe it was the way Taeyang had made it sound so reasonable. Just a house rule like taking off your shoes. Her guards reluctantly leaned their plasma rifles against the porch railing and followed her inside. The farmhouse interior was simple but clean. Wooden furniture, handmade by the look of it. Shelves lined with books, real paper ones, which was oddly traditional. A small kitchen area with a stove where a kettle was already heating. Taeyang gestured for them to sit at a large wooden table while he prepared the tea. "How long have you been on Terra 7? Hana asked, trying to make conversation while also gathering information. "Standard protocol. About 15 years, Taeyang said, pouring hot water into cups. "I came here after I retired. Wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere I could work with my hands. Retired from what? This and that. Different jobs. Nothing interesting." He set cups in front of each of them. The tea smelled pleasant, earthy and warm. "Tell me, Commander, how large is your fleet?" The question was casual, but Hana noticed it immediately. Civilians didn't usually ask about fleet compositions. "That's classified information," she said carefully. Of course," Taeyang said, waving his hand dismissively. He sat down across from her with his own cup. "I just find military logistics fascinating. All those ships moving together, coordinating across vast distances. Must be complex." "It is," Hana admitted. Despite herself, she found him easy to talk to. "The 7th Talon has 83 vessels ranging from scouts to dreadnoughts. We patrol this entire sector." 83, Taeyang repeated, nodding thoughtfully. "That's impressive. And your patrol routes, do they follow standard Imperial patterns?" 3-week cycles. 4 weeks, actually. Hana caught herself. Why was she answering these questions? She set down her teacup. "You seem very interested in military matters for a farmer." Taeyang laughed, a warm sound that seemed genuine. "Sorry, bad habit. I used to know some people in the service. They'd tell me stories. I suppose I'm just making conversation. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out over his fields. Have you heard about the tensions with the human coalition? Some rumors, Hana said carefully. Nothing official. Taiyang turned back to her, and for just a moment his expression changed. The friendly farmer disappeared and something else looked out from behind his eyes. Something old and tired. Let me give you some advice, Commander Hana. If your empire decides to move against human space, make sure your leaders understand what they're doing. Make sure they've studied their history. Is that a threat? Kryn demanded, his hand moving toward his sidearm. No, Taiyang said softly. It's a warning. From someone who wants to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The moment passed and the friendly smile returned. But that's all politics, isn't it? Not our concern. The tribute is in the barn, all packaged and ready for transport. Shall I show you? Hana stood slowly. Her instincts were screaming at her now, telling her something was very wrong about this situation. But she couldn't identify what. The human had been nothing but polite and cooperative. Still, she filed away every detail of this conversation for her report. They followed Taiyang to the barn. He opened the large doors, revealing stacks of crates filled with grain, preserved foods, and rare minerals that the colony had mined. Everything was organized and labeled. The tribute was even slightly more than required. Very efficient, Hana said. I try to be, Taiyang replied. He walked past the crates to the back wall of the barn where agricultural tools hung on hooks. His hand rested briefly on a particular shovel, and Hana saw his fingers trace some kind of marking on the handle. Then he turned back to them. Will you be returning this way again? In 4 weeks, Hana said. Standard schedule. Good, I'll have tea ready. Taiyang walked them back to their shuttle, helping to load the crates despite Hana's protests that it wasn't necessary. When everything was secured, he stepped back and waved. Safe travels, Commander. As the shuttle lifted off, Hana watched the farm shrink below them. She saw Taiyang standing in his field, one hand shading his eyes as he watched them go. Then he turned and walked toward his barn. Strange man, Kryn commented. Very strange, Hana agreed. She pulled out her datapad and began making notes. Something about Taiyang bothered her deeply, and she'd learned long ago to trust her instincts. Run a background check on him. Full depth. I want to know everything about our farmer friend. Yes, Commander. Hana looked out the window one last time. The farm was just a small dot now against the endless fields. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just met someone important. Someone dangerous, even though everything about him had seemed harmless. In her experience, the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were the ones who seemed harmless. She would definitely be coming back to Terra 7. 3 weeks passed and Hana found herself thinking about the farmer more than she should. The background check had returned almost nothing useful. Taiyang appeared on Terra 7 15 years ago, with proper immigration papers, and purchased his farm with legitimate credits. Before that, there was nothing. No birth records in the human databases her people could access. No family connections, no employment history. It was as if he'd simply materialized as a fully grown adult with money and farming knowledge. This bothered Hana more than she wanted to admit. Everyone left traces. Digital footprints, records, connections to other people. But Taiyang was a ghost with a face and a farm. She told herself she was just being thorough. The sector was her responsibility, and unusual findings needed investigation. That's why she diverted her patrol route to fly past Terra 7, just to observe, just to make sure everything was normal. Her second-in-command, Officer Yuna, noticed the course change immediately. Commander, this takes us 2 days out of our standard pattern. Is there a specific threat? Just following up on something, Hana said. She didn't elaborate. Yuna was competent but unimaginative. She wouldn't understand why Hana felt compelled to check on one human farmer. When they entered orbit around Terra 7, Hana made her decision. I'm going down to verify the colony's compliance with Imperial regulations. Yuna, you have the bridge. Commander, that's not scheduled until... I'm aware of the schedule, officer. Hana took a small shuttle this time, just her and a pilot. When they landed near Taiyang's farm, she found him exactly where she expected, working in his fields. He looked up as she approached, shading his eyes against the sun, then waved. Commander Hana, he called out. Back so soon? The next tribute isn't due for another week. Routine inspection, Hana said, though they both knew it wasn't. I wanted to ensure the colony is meeting all requirements. Taeyang smiled like he could see right through her excuse. Of course. Would you like to inspect the farm? I can show you my storage facilities, equipment maintenance logs, whatever you need. That won't be necessary. Hana felt slightly foolish. What was she doing here? Actually, I wanted to ask you some questions. About your past. My past? Taeyang leaned on his hoe, considering. That's a broad topic. What specifically? Where were you before Terra 7? The records are unclear. I traveled a lot, Taeyang said easily. Worked on different worlds. Did some shipping, some trading. Saved up enough to retire here. Not much of a story, really. You speak perfect Vrixtal. That's unusual for a farmer. I'm good with languages. And I've met many of your people over the years. Good teachers. He gestured toward his farmhouse. Look, Commander, if this is going to be a long conversation, at least let me feed you. I made stew this morning. Have you ever had human food? Hana hesitated, then nodded. She was hungry and she wanted to observe him more. Maybe he'd slip up and reveal something. The stew was surprisingly good, rich and flavorful with vegetables she didn't recognize. They ate at his kitchen table and Taeyang asked her questions about the Empire, about her career, about what brought her to military service. He was an excellent listener, the kind of person who made you want to keep talking. Hana found herself telling him about her childhood on the homeworld, about joining the fleet to escape family expectations, about her ambitions to command a dreadnought someday. It felt natural, comfortable. Only later did she realize he'd learned far more about her than she'd learned about him. Over the following weeks, this became a pattern. Hana would find reasons to visit Terra 7, sometimes official inspections, sometimes just passing through the sector. Each time, Taeyang would welcome her, feed her, talk with her. They discussed philosophy, history, and the nature of power. He had strong opinions about military strategy, and would sometimes sketch out battle formations on paper, explaining theoretical tactics with the ease of someone who'd studied warfare deeply. You really should have been a soldier, Hana said one day. Watching him diagram a complex fleet maneuver. I told you I prefer farming, Taeyang said, but there was something sad in his smile. It was during her 5th visit that things got strange. Hana was sitting on Taeyang's porch, drinking tea and watching the sunset. When her communicator chirped urgently, she answered immediately. Commander Hana! Commander, this is the bridge, Yuna's voice crackled through. We have a situation. Commander Minho of the 5th Talon has entered the sector without authorization. He's demanding tribute from Terra 7, says this world falls under his jurisdiction now. Hana stood up sharply. That's ridiculous. This is my sector. Tell him to withdraw immediately. I did, Commander. He refused. He's bringing his flagship into orbit now. He says if we interfere, he'll report us for insubordination. Hana cursed under her breath. Minho was a political climber, always looking for ways to expand his territory and influence. He must have convinced someone in high command that the 7th Talon wasn't properly managing this sector. I'm returning to the ship now, Hana said. She looked at Taeyang, who had come out onto the porch. I'm sorry, I have to go. There's a situation. I heard, Taeyang said calmly. Commander Minho of the 5th Talon, 3 ships. His flagship is a heavy cruiser, about 60 years old but recently retrofitted with plasma cannons. He's aggressive but not particularly smart. Likes to use overwhelming force to compensate for tactical weakness. Hana stared at him. How do you know that? I pay attention to things, Taeyang said. He looked up at the sky where Minho's ships were now visible as bright points of light. Would you like me to handle this? Handle what? You're a farmer. Yes, Taeyang said patiently. But I can handle this. Do you trust me? It was an absurd question. She barely knew him. He had no ships, no weapons, no authority. But something in his eyes, that ancient tiredness she sometimes glimpsed, made her pause. What would you do? She asked. Nothing violent, Taeyang said. Just send them away, may I? Hana found herself nodding. She didn't know why. Taeyang walked into his house. Through the window, she saw him go to his basement door and disappear down the stairs. Minutes ticked by. Hana kept her communicator open, listening to Yuna coordinate defensive positions in case Minho tried something aggressive. Then, suddenly, chaos. Commander! Commander! Yuna's voice rose in pitch. Minho's flagship just lost all power. Their engines are offline, weapons offline, life support running on emergency backup. What? Hana demanded. What happened? Did we fire on them? No, we didn't do anything. It just happened. His other ships are trying to assist, but they're experiencing system failures too. Multiple cascading malfunctions across all 3 vessels. Commander, they're dead in space. Hana stared at the basement door. Taeyang emerged a moment later, brushing dust off his hands. They'll be able to restart their systems in about an hour, he said conversationally. Should give them enough time to reconsider their priorities and head home. I imagine Commander Minho will be too embarrassed to report what happened. What did you do? Hana whispered. Old farming trick, Taeyang said with a slight smile. Sometimes you have to protect your crops from pests. Hana's communicator continued to crackle with confused reports from her crew. Minho's ships were drifting. No weapons fire had been exchanged. No explanation for the sudden systems failure. It made no sense. She looked at Taeyang, really looked at him. The simple farmer standing in front of his farmhouse, hands in his pockets, completely relaxed. Who are you? She asked. Someone who wants to be left alone, Taeyang said quietly. Someone who hopes your empire is smarter than it appears. What does that mean? It means war is coming, Commander. I can feel it. Your leaders are getting ambitious. They're looking at human space and seeing opportunity, but they're making a mistake. A terrible mistake. You're just one man, Hana said. One farmer on one world? Yes, Taeyang agreed. But I'm not the only one watching. And I'm not the only one who remembers. Remembers what? Taeyang didn't answer. He just looked up at the stars, where Minho's ships were slowly drifting out of orbit. Their crews scrambling to repair systems they didn't understand had been sabotaged. Hana returned to her ship with more questions than answers. She filed a report about the incident but left out Taeyang's involvement. She couldn't prove anything, and it sounded insane even thinking about it, but she knew what she'd seen. That night, alone in her quarters, she pulled up the historical archives and began searching. She typed in keywords: human wars, military commanders, legendary figures. The results were vast and mostly propaganda. But one name kept appearing in classified documents, always redacted, always referenced obliquely. A human admiral from decades ago. A commander who had fought in something called the Expansion Wars. The files were locked behind security clearances she didn't have. But she'd seen enough. She was going to find out who Taeyang really was, even if it took her months. 2 months after the incident with Commander Minho, the entire galaxy shifted. The Vrixtal High Command made its announcement on all frequencies, broadcast to every world under Imperial control and beyond. The Empire was declaring war on the human coalition. All human worlds would be brought under direct Imperial rule within 6 months. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. Hana sat in her ready room aboard her flagship, listening to the declaration with growing dread. Around her, the rest of the 7th Talon Fleet prepared for mobilization. 3,000 warships from across the Empire were gathering for the largest military operation in a generation. The humans, scattered across dozens of poorly defended colonies, would be easy targets. At least that's what High Command believed. But Hana kept thinking about Taeyang, about the way he'd disabled 3 warships without firing a shot, about his warnings, about the strange sadness in his eyes when he talked about war. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message. Secure channel priority level. When she opened it, she nearly dropped her data pad. The message was simple, just a few words on her screen, but the encryption was military grade and the routing was untraceable. Hana, before you go to war, visit me one last time. Please. This is important. Taeyang, she stared at the message. He shouldn't have been able to access this channel. It was secured with codes that changed daily, protected by the best security the Empire could design. Yet somehow a farmer had sent her a message that bypassed everything. Hana made her decision quickly. Officer Yuna, I'm taking a shuttle to Terra 7 for one final inspection before deployment. Commander, we're mobilizing in 8 hours. There's no time for inspections. Make time, Hana said sharply. I'll be back in 4 hours. She took a single pilot shuttle and flew down to Terra 7 alone. As she approached the farm, everything looked normal. The fields were green and healthy. The farmhouse sat peaceful in the afternoon light. But when she landed, Taeyang was waiting for her outside the barn and his expression was grim. Thank you for coming, he said. I wasn't sure you would. What's this about? Hana demanded. And how did you access my secure channel? Come inside, Taeyang said. I need to show you something. He led her into the barn. During her previous visits, she'd never gone past the main storage area. But now Taeyang walked to the back wall and pressed his hand against a specific wooden board. Something clicked. The wall swung inward, revealing a hidden passage leading down into darkness. Follow me, Taeyang said, and started down the stairs. Hana hesitated only a moment before following. Her hand rested on her sidearm, but she didn't draw it. Whatever was happening, she needed to see it. The stairs descended deep underground, much deeper than any farm basement should go. They ended in a large room filled with technology that made Hana's breath catch. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing real-time positions of ships across multiple star systems. She recognized her own fleet's formation, the gathering Imperial Armada, human defense positions. Everything was here, updated and tracking in real time. What is this? She whispered. My retirement project, Taeyang said quietly. He walked to the center of the room and touched a control panel. The display shifted, zooming out to show the entire sector, then the entire region. Thousands of ships, both Imperial and human, all tracked and identified. I've been keeping watch, making sure the peace held. This is impossible. This level of monitoring would require access to military networks across multiple governments. The processing power alone would need. Hana stopped, her mind racing. Who are you? Taeyang stood silent for a long moment, his back to her, staring at the displays. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired. My full name is Taeyang Choi, Admiral Taeyang Choi, former Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Sphere. I led humanity through the expansion wars 40 years ago. He turned to face her. I'm the man your people call the Ghost Admiral, the one who defeated the 3 most powerful empires in the galaxy simultaneously, and forced them to sign peace treaties on human terms. Hana felt her legs go weak. She grabbed the edge of a console to steady herself. That's impossible. The Ghost Admiral is a myth, human propaganda to make their military seem more capable than it is. I wish that were true, Taeyang said softly. He walked to another console and pulled up files. Historical records, battle reports, classified documents that shouldn't exist outside of the highest levels of Imperial archives, the Siege of Vega Prime, the Battle of the Iron Gate, the Cascade Campaign. I commanded all of them. 317 major engagements over 12 years. We won them all. The displays showed footage Hana had never seen. Human fleets executing maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible. Imperial ships, including ancient Vrixtal vessels, being systematically destroyed or captured. And in many of the command recordings, a younger version of Taeyang, wearing an admiral's uniform, giving orders with calm precision. After the peace treaties were signed, I was tired, Taeyang continued. So tired of fighting, of making decisions that killed millions. I'd spent 12 years at war, and I'd forgotten what it was like to build instead of destroy. So I retired. I found this quiet world and became what I always wanted to be, a farmer. Someone who grows things. Hana sank into a chair, her mind struggling to process everything. Why are you telling me this? Because I like you, Hana, Taeyang said. You're smart, fair, you actually care about the people under your command, and I don't want to kill you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Your empire is about to make the same mistake others made 40 years ago, Taeyang said. He pulled up new displays showing the gathering Imperial Armada. You think humanity is weak because we choose peace. You see our scattered colonies and small defense fleets and think we're easy prey. But you're wrong. We're not weak. We're patient. And we've been preparing. He changed the display. Hidden stations appeared throughout human space. Weapons platforms. Defense grids. Ships concealed in asteroid fields and nebulae. The human military was 10 times larger than Imperial intelligence estimated. I designed most of these systems before I retired, Taeyang said. They're still operational. Still watching. The moment your fleet crosses into human core territory, they'll activate. You'll face weapons technology your people haven't seen before. Tactics you haven't prepared for. And you'll lose. You can't know that, Hana said, but her voice lacked conviction. I can, Taeyang said firmly. He pulled up simulations. Mathematical models showing the invasion from every angle. Every scenario ended the same way. The Imperial Armada was destroyed within 72 hours. The casualties were catastrophic. I know because I built the system specifically to counter Imperial tactics. I've studied your military for 40 years, Hana. I know how you think, how you fight, how you organize your fleets, and I know how to beat you. Then why tell me? Why not just let us attack and destroy us? Because I don't want to fight anymore. Taeyang's voice rose, showing real emotion for the first time. I've had enough of war. Enough of death. I came here to grow vegetables and watch sunsets and live in peace. But if you force me, if your empire threatens human worlds, I'll put the uniform back on. I'll take command again, and I will end this war so decisively that the empire will never threaten humanity again. He walked close to her, his eyes intense. You can stop this, Hana. Go back to your high command. Show them this evidence. Make them understand they're walking into a trap. Convince them to call off the invasion. They won't listen to me, Hana said. I'm just a fleet commander. They'll think I'm exaggerating or that this is human deception. Then try anyway, Taeyang said, because the alternative is thousands of your people dying in a war they can't win, and that blood will be on your hands as much as mine. Hana stood slowly. Her entire worldview had shattered in the last 20 minutes. Everything she thought she knew about humanity, about the balance of power in the galaxy, was wrong. If what you're saying is true, why did you retire? Why give up all that power? Because power without purpose is just destruction, Taeyang said quietly. I fought to protect my people and secure peace. Once I achieved that, staying in command would have just made me a tyrant waiting to happen. So I stepped down. I handed control to people who wanted to build, not just defend. And I came here to remember what I was fighting for. He looked out at his holographic displays, at all the ships preparing for war, but I never stopped watching, never stopped preparing, because I knew someday someone would mistake our kindness for weakness, our patience for inability. He looked back at Hana. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped the peace would last long enough that people forgot why it was necessary. But I wasn't wrong, and now we're here. Hana's communicator chimed. Officer Yuna was calling, probably wondering where she was. The mobilization would begin soon. She had to make a choice. I'll try, she said finally. I'll take this to high command. But Taeyang, if they don't listen, then I'll see you on the battlefield, Taeyang said. And I'll do everything I can to make sure you survive it. But I can't promise anything. Hana nodded and turned to leave. At the stairs, she paused. The tea, the conversations, our friendship. Was any of that real? All of it was real, Taeyang said softly. That's why this hurts. She climbed back up to the surface and flew back to her ship, carrying with her the burden of knowledge that might save thousands of lives or be completely ignored. Either way, nothing would ever be the same. Hana stood before the High Command Council, her hands clasped behind her back, trying to maintain her composure. The council chamber was massive, circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform where she stood alone. 15 senior commanders and 3 grand admirals looked down at her with expressions ranging from boredom to outright hostility. They did not like having their mobilization interrupted. Commander Hana of the 7th Talon, Grand Admiral Taejin spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. You requested this emergency session claiming to have intelligence that affects the invasion. Speak. Hana took a deep breath. She had prepared for this during the entire journey back. She knew how it would sound. Insane. Desperate. But she had to try. Honored commanders, I have discovered that our intelligence on human military capabilities is critically flawed. The humans possess defense systems far beyond what we've estimated. Their fleet strength is at least 10 times larger than our projections. They've been concealing their true capabilities for decades. And you know this how? Admiral Soman asked, leaning forward with narrowed eyes. I encountered evidence on Terra 7, a monitoring station that showed real-time tracking of all military forces in this region. The technology was far beyond what colonists should possess. A monitoring station, Taejin repeated slowly, on a farming colony. And you believe this is evidence of a secret human military buildup? Yes, Grand Admiral. The station was operated by someone with extensive military knowledge. Someone who, Hana hesitated. This was the part that would sound completely unbelievable. Someone who claims to be Admiral Taeyang Choi. The reaction was immediate. Several commanders laughed outright. Others exchanged amused glances. Grand Admiral Taejin's expression didn't change, but his voice dripped with skepticism. The Ghost Admiral. The human myth. You're telling us that a legend from 40-year-old propaganda is living on a farm and warned you not to invade? I know how it sounds, Hana said, trying to keep her voice steady. But I saw the evidence. Battle recordings, classified documents from our own archives, technology that couldn't exist on a simple colony. He knew details about our fleet movements that no civilian should know. Commander Hana, Admiral Sumi spoke up, her tone more sympathetic but no less dismissive. You've been patrolling that sector for 2 years. Sometimes isolation affects judgment. It's understandable. I'm not suffering from isolation-induced paranoia, Hana said sharply. I'm telling you what I saw with my own eyes. The human military is far more capable than we've estimated. And if we proceed with this invasion, we will suffer catastrophic losses. Based on the word of a farmer who claims to be a mythological figure, Taejin said. Do you have any actual proof? Any evidence you can present to this council? Hana had known this question was coming. Taeyang hadn't given her any physical evidence. No recordings she could show, no documents she could present. Just what she'd seen in that underground facility, and her word alone wasn't enough. The evidence is on Terra 7, in a hidden facility beneath. So you have nothing, Taejin interrupted. Commander, the Empire has spent 3 years planning this operation. We've analyzed every aspect of human military capability. We've infiltrated their command structures. We know their fleet positions, their resource limitations, their technological level. They are a young species barely past their first century of space travel. They have no superweapons, no hidden fleets, no ghost admirals living on farms. But what if I'm right? Hana demanded. What if everything I saw was real? Are you willing to risk 3,000 ships and hundreds of thousands of lives on the assumption that I'm wrong? The chamber fell silent. For a moment, Hana thought she might have reached them. Then Admiral Soman spoke, his voice cold. Commander, you've served the Empire well, but you've overstepped. This sounds like human psychological warfare, and you've fallen for it. They want us to doubt, to hesitate, to question our intelligence. He looked at the other commanders. This is exactly what a desperate enemy would do. Plant false information, make us afraid of shadows. The other commanders nodded. Hana felt her hope crumbling. Grand Admiral, she tried one more time. I'm asking you to at least send a reconnaissance force to verify. Denied, Taejin said flatly. The invasion proceeds as scheduled. Commander Hana, you will return to your fleet and prepare for deployment. You are dismissed. But dismissed, Commander. Hana saluted mechanically and left the chamber. In the corridor outside, she leaned against the wall, her hands shaking. She'd failed. They were going to war, and thousands would die, and no one would believe her warning until it was too late. Officer Yuna was waiting for her at the shuttle bay. Commander? How did it go? They didn't listen, Hana said quietly. Prepare the fleet for invasion. We jumped to human space in 6 hours. The next hours passed in a blur. Hana went through the motions of preparation, checking systems, reviewing battle plans, coordinating with other fleet commanders. But her mind was elsewhere, thinking about Taeyang standing in his fields, tired and sad, knowing what was coming. She tried to contact him one last time, but her messages bounced back. Terra 7's communications were offline. Either the humans had shut them down in preparation for war, or Taeyang had cut himself off deliberately. As the fleet assembled in formation, Hana stood on her bridge watching the view screen. 3,000 ships. The largest armada the Empire had deployed in decades. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, destroyers, carriers. Enough firepower to shatter worlds. They looked invincible. But she kept thinking about the simulations Taeyang had shown her. Every scenario ending in defeat. Every projection showing massive casualties. He'd been so certain, so calm about it, like he was reading from a history book that had already been written. All fleets reporting ready, Yuna announced. Jump coordinates locked. Waiting for final authorization from High Command. The authorization came through minutes later. Grand Admiral Taejin's face appeared on the view screen, addressing all fleet commanders simultaneously. Warriors of the Empire, he said, his voice proud and confident. Today we expand our territory and bring the blessings of imperial rule to another species. The humans are young and foolish. They will learn to respect the Empire's power. All fleets begin jump sequence. Hana watched as her fleet's jump drives powered up. Around her, other fleets did the same. In moments, they would cross into human space and begin the invasion. There was nothing more she could do. Commander, Yuna said quietly, are you all right? No, Hana admitted. I don't think any of us will be all right after this. You really believe that, farmer, don't you? You think we're going to lose? Hana looked at her second in command. Yuna deserved honesty. Yes, I believe him. And I think the Empire just made the worst mistake in its history. But we have 3,000 ships. The humans can't possibly. We'll see, Hana said. She gripped the armrests of her command chair. Proceed with jump, and Yuna, make sure all crew are at battle stations. Something tells me we're going to need them ready faster than we think. The jump drives engaged. Space twisted around them as the fleet entered hyperspace, heading toward human core worlds. The journey would take 4 hours. 4 hours before they emerged into whatever hell Taeyang had promised. Hana spent those hours reviewing every piece of intelligence she could access about the Ghost Admiral. Most of it was classified or redacted, but she found fragments. References to battles that seemed impossible. Casualty reports that didn't make sense. Peace treaties signed under conditions that heavily favored humanity, despite them being the weaker party. All of it pointed to someone extraordinary, someone who had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy, and then disappeared. And now he was coming back, because they'd forced him to. Emerging from hyperspace in 60 seconds, the navigation officer announced. Hana stood up. All hands to combat stations. Shields at maximum. Weapons ready. Scan for enemy vessels the moment we arrive. Yes, Commander. The countdown reached 0. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace into human territory. 3,000 ships materializing in formation ready for war. And immediately everything went wrong. Alarms blared across every ship. Weapons platforms activated throughout the system, previously hidden in asteroid fields and debris clouds. Massive defense stations powered up, their energy signatures far beyond anything Imperial intelligence had predicted. And everywhere human ships appeared, uncloaking from stealth fields that shouldn't exist. Multiple enemy contacts, the sensor officer shouted. Hundreds of ships. Thousands. They were waiting for us. How did they know our arrival coordinates? Yuna demanded. Hana knew the answer. Taeyang had been tracking their fleet for weeks. He knew exactly where they would arrive and had positioned his forces perfectly. This wasn't a battle. It was an ambush. All fleets defensive formation. Grand Admiral Taejan's voice came over the fleet channel, no longer confident. Prepare for engagement. But before anyone could respond, every screen in the fleet flickered. A new signal overrode all communications, and there on every view screen stood Taeyang. He was wearing a military uniform now, dark and formal, with medals and insignia that Hana didn't recognize. He stood on the bridge of a massive warship, and behind him, crew members moved with practiced efficiency. He looked directly at the camera, directly at them, and when he spoke, his voice was transmitted to every ship in the Imperial Armada. This is Admiral Taeyang Choi of the Terran Defense Forces, he said calmly. You have entered human sovereign space with hostile intent. You were warned. You chose not to listen. Now you will learn why the galaxy fears the Ghost Admiral. The battle began with surgical precision. Human weapons platforms opened fire, targeting Imperial ships with accuracy that should have been impossible at such range. Shields flared and died under sustained bombardment. 3 destroyers were crippled in the first 30 seconds. Return fire. Grand Admiral Taejan's voice came over the fleet channel, strained and angry. All ships engage enemy forces. But the Imperial fleet was in chaos. The human forces had emerged from every direction, breaking the careful formation that had taken hours to arrange. Worse, the weapons they were using weren't in any Imperial database. Energy beams that phased through shields, missiles that maneuvered with impossible agility, point defense systems that shot down incoming fire with perfect accuracy. On Hana's bridge, the tactical display was a nightmare of red indicators, enemy contacts, damaged ships, systems failing. The carefully planned invasion was falling apart. Commander, we're being hailed, the communications officer said. It's the enemy flagship. It's him, the farmer, Admiral Choi. Put it through, Hana said. Ship-wide. Taeyang's face appeared on the main view screen again. He looked older somehow, standing there in his uniform, the weight of command visible in his eyes. But he also looked focused, determined. This was not the friendly farmer who had served her tea. This was a military commander doing what he was trained to do. Commander Hana of the 7th Talon. Taeyang said, speaking directly to her. I know you tried to warn them. I know you didn't want this. Your ship is the most advanced in the Imperial fleet and you're one of their best tactical officers, but you're also my friend and I don't want to destroy you. Behind him, Hana could see holographic displays showing the entire battlefield. He had real-time tracking of every ship, just like in his underground facility. He knew where everyone was, what they were doing. He could see the whole battle like a god looking down at pieces on a board. I'm offering terms, Taeyang continued, his voice carrying to every ship in the Imperial fleet. Full withdrawal, immediate. Recognition of human sovereignty over all current human territories, a non-aggression treaty lasting 50 years. In exchange, I'll let you leave, all of you. Damaged ships will be allowed to make repairs before departure. Casualties will receive medical assistance. This is unacceptable. Taejin's voice cut in. We will not be dictated to by humans. All fleets press the attack. Taeyang's expression didn't change. Very well. You were warned. He nodded to someone off screen. Suddenly, Hana felt her command chair vibrate. Warning lights flashed across every console on her bridge. Systems began shutting down one by one. Navigation, weapons, shields, main engines. What's happening? Yuna demanded, frantically working her controls. I'm locked out. Someone else is controlling our systems. Not just their ship. Across the fleet, half of the Imperial vessels went dark. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Life support switched to emergency backup. The mighty armada, moments ago ready to conquer human space, was now floating helplessly. How is this possible? Hana whispered. She looked at Taeyang on the screen. He was watching her, and his expression was apologetic but firm. 40 years ago, I oversaw the construction of every major Imperial shipyard, Taeyang said calmly. Your empire never changes its security protocols. Your ship designs are built on frameworks that I helped create back when we had a technology-sharing treaty. I know every system, every weakness, every access code. I can control half your fleet with a thought and the other half won't be able to do anything about it. He was right. The ships he'd disabled were scattered throughout the formation, making it impossible for the active ships to coordinate an effective attack without risking friendly fire. It was brilliant and terrifying. You have two choices, Taeyang continued. Accept my terms or I start destroying ships. I'll give you 60 seconds to decide. Grand Admiral Taejin appeared on a split screen, his face purple with rage. You're bluffing. You don't have the firepower to destroy 3,000 ships. I don't need 3,000, Taeyang said quietly. I only need to destroy enough that the rest of you understand I'm serious. Would 100 be enough? 200? How many ships are you willing to sacrifice for your pride, Grand Admiral? The 60 seconds ticked down. Hana watched the tactical display. The human fleet was positioned perfectly. Every Imperial ship was covered by multiple weapons platforms. It was a kill zone. If Taeyang wanted to, he could inflict massive casualties before the Empire could even mount an effective response. 30 seconds, Taeyang said. Grand Admiral, Hana spoke into the fleet channel. He's not bluffing. We need to accept his terms. Commander Hana, you will be silent, Taejin shouted. I will not surrender to a farming world. It's not a farming world, Hana shot back. It's humanity's true military and we walked right into their trap. Look at the tactical situation. We can't win this. Accept his terms while he's still offering them. Other fleet commanders began speaking up, their voices overlapping on the channel. Some agreed with Hana. Others supported Taejin. The fleet was fracturing. 10 seconds, Taeyang said. Wait, Taejin finally shouted. Wait, I'll hear your terms. Full details. I need to consult with... No, Taeyang interrupted. You've had years to think about this decision. You chose war. Now you choose survival or destruction. Yes or no, Grand Admiral? You have 5 seconds. The bridge was silent. Hana held her breath. On the screen, Taeyang stood perfectly still, his hand hovering over a control panel. If he pressed it, hundreds of ships would die. Yes, Taejin said finally, the words seeming to cause him physical pain. Yes, we accept. Full withdrawal. Taeyang's hand moved away from the panel. Smart choice. All Imperial vessels will deactivate weapons and power down shields. You will remain in this system for 6 hours while we verify your compliance. Then you will jump back to Imperial space. You will not return to human territory. Am I clear? Crystal, Taejin said bitterly. Good. Taeyang looked directly at Hana again. Commander Hana, I'm returning control of your systems now. I trust you'll ensure this withdrawal goes smoothly. Her ship's systems came back online one by one. Hana exhaled in relief. I will, she said. Thank you for sparing us. I didn't want to fight, Taeyang said, and for a moment, the friendly farmer was visible again beneath the Admiral's uniform. I told you that. I hope your empire learns from this. His image disappeared from the screen. The human fleet maintained their positions, watching, waiting, making sure the Imperial Armada actually left. The withdrawal took 6 hours, as promised. It was humiliating and silent. 3,000 ships, the pride of the Empire, retreating without having achieved a single objective. Some ships were heavily damaged from the brief exchange of fire. Casualties were relatively light, only a few hundred dead, but the psychological damage was immense. The war had lasted 18 hours, the shortest major conflict in galactic history. Hana supervised her fleet's departure, coordinating with other commanders to ensure no one did anything stupid. When they finally jumped back to Imperial space, she felt exhausted. Not from battle, but from the weight of everything that had happened. The Empire would never be the same. They'd been utterly defeated by humans they'd assumed were primitive and weak. The Ghost Admiral had proven to be real, and he'd crushed the Imperial Armada without breaking a sweat. Grand Admiral Taijin would be forced to resign. Heads would roll throughout the military command structure, and new treaties would be written, giving humanity far more respect than they'd ever received before. But Hana thought about Taeyang, standing on his bridge looking tired and sad even in victory. He hadn't wanted this. He'd wanted to be left alone with his farm and his tea and his quiet life. They'd forced him to put the uniform back on, and he'd shown them exactly why he'd been feared 40 years ago. 3 months later, after the treaties were signed and the political chaos had settled, Hana made a request. She resigned her military commission and accepted a position as an Imperial ambassador. Her first assignment was to Terra 7. When her shuttle landed near Taeyang's farm, she found him exactly where she expected. In his fields, wearing his farming clothes, working the soil with his hands. He looked up as she approached and smiled. Welcome back, Commander, he said, then corrected himself. Sorry, Ambassador Hana. Just Hana, she said. She walked up to him, looking at the crops growing in neat rows. I resigned. After everything, I needed a new path. And you came here? Taeyang leaned on his hoe, studying her. Looking for farming advice? Maybe, Hana said. You did promise to teach me how to grow those tomatoes. Taeyang laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. I did, didn't I? Well, come on then. First lesson starts now. They walked toward his farmhouse together. Behind them, the barn stood quiet. But Hana knew the equipment inside was still active. Still monitoring. Still watching the stars for threats. Do you regret it? She asked. Coming out of retirement? Every day, Taeyang said honestly. But it was necessary. Your empire needed to learn that humanity isn't weak. We're just patient. We prefer peace. But we'll fight when we have to and we'll win when we fight. My people made a mistake, Hana said. We saw your kindness and thought it was inability. Most powerful beings in the galaxy make that mistake eventually, Taeyang said. He opened his farmhouse door and gestured for her to enter. The truly dangerous ones are the ones who could destroy you but choose not to, because they're only dangerous when you force them to be. Inside, tea was already brewing. Hana sat at the familiar kitchen table while Taeyang prepared cups for both of them. It felt surreal, sitting here with the man who had defeated the Empire, drinking tea and talking about farming. Will you teach me? Hana asked. Not just farming, but how you think, how you see the world. I want to understand. I can try, Taeyang said, setting a cup in front of her, but it's a long lesson. Might take years. I have time, Hana said. and I want to make sure the Empire never makes this mistake again. Someone needs to remember what happened here. Someone needs to teach the next generation that peace isn't weakness." Taeyang smiled. "Then welcome to the farm, Ambassador. Your first real lesson starts tomorrow at dawn. Hope you're ready for hard work." "I am," Hana said. They drank their tea in comfortable silence, watching the sunset through the kitchen window. Outside, the field stretched golden and peaceful. In orbit above, monitoring satellites still tracked every ship within 100 light-years, just in case. Because Taeyang had returned to farming, but he would never truly retire. He was a guardian, standing watch over the harvest, protecting what mattered. And now Hana would stand watch with him, ensuring the hard-won peace would last. The galaxy had learned its lesson, but some farmers never stop being vigilant, because they understand that the best defense is making sure you never need to fight at all. And if you do have to fight, you make absolutely certain you win.